I call the member for Bowman.
We've just heard from a minister that points out that there's a 4-week review. And remember that in early education and care, this was a piece of crisis policy unique worldwide that kept 98% of education open right across this great country. And there's 13,000 childcare centres out there that probably realise many of them would have been imperilled had there not been this quick intervention. And obviously it's a complicated system in Australia when we have so much of our provision being private sector. So it's quite easy when the government owns every sector, isn't it? But Australia and its unique quality of high standard early education, unique around the OECD that it is so open to people of all socio-economic backgrounds, had a unique challenge that the overwhelming majority of early education is private businesses themselves that make private mercantile decisions on something as important as early learning, but they do it so very well. So it's a very complicated sector, run by church groups, run by state governments, having state governments as landlords. There's great variation. So when you come up with a crisis response to that, it's effectively switching off that very, very complicated system, coming up with something that could actually meet the needs of all those different kinds of centres was in fact incredibly challenging. And that's why we've got a responsive policy situation and a 4-week review in front of the Minister and the Department right now to find solutions. But what was often understated, and having spoken with personal experience with centres that wrote to their parents and pointed out that while JobKeeper played a significant supplementational role, and we know it's nearly, I think, $1 billion in the sector, a lot of that money went to the pockets of staff, and it went to the pockets of many staff who were only doing small shifts per fortnight. Many of them were just permanent part-time workers who actually did better with JobKeeper, and those funds self-evidently didn't go to running the centres themselves. And that is the heart of the concern from many centres who said that taking the 50% of the hourly cap or the fee total, whichever is the lesser, has left them technically in a position of low liquidity to run the centre. Now that's exactly why there was and was very rarely discussed, and I can see the opposition with the eyebrows raising as I pointed out, there was the Special Circumstances Supplementary Fund explicitly for that purpose. And we know that up to $10,000 is available to, well, I think that would be potentially 2,500, nearly 3,000 centres that find themselves in a situation where they aren't financially in the same position as they were before the crisis. Now, there's plenty of businesses out there, Deputy Speaker, that are not in the same position as they were before the crisis. Let's just start with that antecedent point. And secondly, that fund is there for that purpose. It's responsive, it's fast, it's an easy process to go through unless you're a Labor MP. It's fairly self-evident that the special circumstances are absolutely there in smaller communities in particular, for those in the centre of cities where their rent payments are higher. And of course it's a solution that is ready and able to solve those uncertainties until of course a 4-week review occurs. Now it's easy to chortle when you're in the opposition. But for many of these small businesses who never see a Labor MP, short of seeing an asteroid, it's fantastic to have some interest from the other side of the chamber in something other than signing up their damn staff to be union members. You're finally taking an interest in the quality side. And look, I accept that the shadow minister has visited a few, but I tell you what, you're flat out getting a Labor MP to show up to a childcare centre for the damn Christmas party. So for goodness sake, show up, put some books under your wing and show up to an early education centre and talk to not just those you're trying to sign up to the unions, but talk to those who run the business. These are many of them, and they range from mom and pop enterprises through to Good Start Early Learning, very, very different circumstances. But those special circumstances supplementary funds are there to give a tailored response to centres that need it. And you know what? Even after that, there will be this 4-week review and the findings from it. So let's be honest, it's not blemish-free. Let's be honest, it's not an unchallenging environment. But let's be frank, this is a government that acted early and, in fact, swiftly and decisively in COVID in a way that many other governments refused to do. I mean, I was in the UK in early March as they were sat there anchovy-like in their House of Commons in the middle of a COVID catastrophe, whereas this government had already acted for early learning and care, acted for the economy, acted for employees who just wanted to keep a connection to their workplace. And I tell you what, when we pull all of those interventions together, this will be a nation very proud of what this government has achieved with the COVID crisis.